Again, this is called God Didn't Begin to Exist from Time Out. Apparently, this was actually an advertisement on one of my videos. So that's how I know about it. So let's find out. Let's see what this is like.
Okay, I'm just going to give you one argument for God's existence. It's
Okay.
called the Kalam Cosmological Argument, which is...
Okay, so we have the Kalam Cosmological Argument. Before we get into anything here, let me go ahead and get some reference material up for the Kalam Cosmological Argument, because I do not want to put my foot in my mouth. Alright, so this is the argument from First Cause. We have some stuff up. Let's begin.
It's just some fancy words for here's some evidence for God. It starts with an obvious truth that hopefully we can all agree on. The universe exists.
Well, solipsists, go ahead and get out of the chat. If you're a solipsist, it's time to leave, because that's already not an obvious truth. But if we were to accept that the universe does in fact exist, simply for pragmatic reasons, then fine. We'll go ahead and accept that the universe exists. We'll also go ahead and pop my back because that's hurting. Suris does not have an autoerotic foot fetish. Good to know. What? That's weird. What is that coming from?
If you don't agree with that, I can't help you, but let's assume you do.
I love how it's, if you don't agree with that, I can't help you. Okay? But what are you, again, what if you're talking to a solipsist? If you're talking to a solipsist, this whole conversation becomes very different.
The universe exists, we have two options. Either it had a beginning, or it had no beginning. Well, there's really good evidence that the universe had a beginning.
Oh, and given the imagery, what they're going to argue is that the Big Bang was the beginning of the universe. Let's continue on.
Big Bang cosmology, the second law of thermodynamics. Philosophically, it's impossible to have an infinite regress.
So, hold up. Philosophically, it's impossible to have an infinite regress. Why? Let's go ahead and just start on here. Let's ignore the fact that they just dropped the second law of thermodynamics in there for reasons, I guess. They just... right in the barrel. Didn't do anything with that. So, let's go ahead and ignore the fact that they just dropped science in there without doing any type of explanation. Also, thank you very much, Sai Senkra. Here's some evidence for some God. Here's some evidence for God. Sig, $2. Cal says, so the Kalamazoo is sound. The only issue is that it doesn't point to any God or ascendant creator. I think I actually might agree with that, with a few exceptions. We still have to grant certain things within the Kalam for that, but we're cart before horsing. Let's focus on this real quick. So, again, let's go ahead and skirt past the second law of thermodynamics issue. And let's go ahead and focus on the fact that they said philosophically an infinite regress is impossible. Now, I know that I've got some people in my chat who are decently versed in philosophy. I know that I've got Callan in there. I know I've got Brian Stevens in there. So, my question to you guys, and anybody else in the chat as well who is philosophically inclined, can you tell me, or anybody else for the rest of the class, what the issues are with an infinite regress? Because last I checked, there actually isn't a problem with an infinite regress. The only problem we have is our ability to perceive an infinite regress. The real lock for $2. $2, this won't get past Deism. Yeah, you're not wrong there. So, I recognize it'll probably take a second for anybody to actually, type out issue. The only problem is with the incredulity of the unimaginative. Just like in mathematics, infinity is a useful concept. What is an infinite regress? Okay, so for yokai theories, an infinite regress is basically saying that everything, As an example, I came from my mother. My mother came from her mother. Her mother came from her mother. Her mother came from her mother. Eventually, we get to the point where there are the first living organisms here. This is a regress that is finite.
Your full undivided attention and your camera off. You can have the sound on.
Okay. Give me 1 second then. We'll do this.
It would actually be preferable if you have your sound on. So, you know the dance that the ball guy does?
Oh my god. It's the
same
one from
dance.
It's the one from Twilight Princess.
He does that dance. And now you'll never unsee it. You'll never unhear that music playing
Hold
when
on.
he's dancing.
Come here. Come here, Growl.
You're welcome. Are you about to show her on stream?
Yep. Go ahead and... Okay. I have come back with a puppo. Hey, no, stop that. I know, we were in the middle of philosophy, and now we have dog. This is Growlithe. She is a baby. She is a cute pupper. Hey, Growlithe. Hello. How you doing? Suris is a zookeeper, confirmed. Only because of this one. What? We're all monkeys. Am I wrong?
We're primates.
Yes.
Get it right.
You realize that monkey is a colloquialism, not a scientific designation, right? Did I just lose puppy privileges? Fine. There we go. Silas. Mom says Christmas lunch money. Well, thank you very much for the $25 donation, Silas. The only gripe I have, and I have one gripe, and it is one very important gripe. I won't see that money until next month. Because it's sent through YouTube's chat. It has to go through the Streamlabs, the PayPal, or the Coffee link for me to see it. But I do still thank you for the $25 donation. That's massive, and that's awesome. So, I do still thank you for that. Yes? Honey?
Apparently you need puppy privileges back.
She doesn't know that. That's fair. Later, Growlithe. Okay, I'm going to continue doing the thing.
No.
Yes.
Continue showing off puppy.
Oh my god. Why don't we just let the puppy stream and kick Suris? The puppy would be more entertaining than me. Let's be honest. Let's be fair.
It's also louder.
Fair.
Not loud.
We need to close the... Okay, fine. You know what? You guys can hear me at loudest volume. There we go. Okay. Yes, puppy would get more subs than I would be able to get elsewise. You're not wrong. Real Suris is like... there. Right there. You can see his legs. You can see his legs there. Alrighty. So, to go back to the explanation from before, a finite regress is like my birth leading to, or my birth coming from my mom's birth, coming from her mom's birth, coming from her mom's birth, etc. That's a finite regress. An infinite regress is a series of events leading all the way, and there's no back. Like, instead of going all the way back to the beginning, you are going all the way, and it keeps going and going and going, and it never stops. And it's a regress because you are going backwards in time. So, what are the actual problems with an infinite regress? Well, the only real problem with an infinite regress is perception. I can hear the puppy. The only real problem is perception. As a human, we cannot perceive the infinite. We can't even fathom the infinite in any way, shape, or form. This is one of the reasons why any apologetic that involves hell, as an example, gets countered by the fact that hell is the most immoral punishment of all time. Because as human beings, we can't even fathom the idea of infinity going forward. We most certainly can't fathom the idea of infinity going backwards. You can have an infinite regress. It's just hard to justify. Well, I mean, so an infinite regress is just as hard to justify as a finite regress, because we have equal knowledge about the beginning of the we have equal knowledge on both sides about the beginning of the universe, period. Or at least the beginning of existence, the beginning of the cosmos. For the beginning of existence, we have no information. Not a single bit. Even where the Big Bang is concerned, which is just the beginning of our local space, we can get within a few microseconds of t-0, but we can't get past that. We can't even get to where t-0 actually happens. We can't get to the beginning of the expansion. As a result, in my estimation, any argument, one way or the other, for infinite or finite, can't get us anywhere, because there's no evidence either way. We can't actually go back and figure that stuff out. We can use mathematics to get us to close to right now, possibly eventually right to the beginning of the Big Bang, but even that is not necessarily the beginning of the universe, because here's the other problem. What does the Big Bang say happened? What does that theory actually say happened? Well, it says that all matter existed in a finite point of space, and then that finite point of space had a period of rapid inflation and expansion. This inflation expansion happened. As a result, we got that matter expanded out, and then slowly over time, more heavy elements were able to come out of different reactions that happened as a result of that, and those heavy elements helped lead to the types of planetoids and stuff that we have today. Now, if you notice something, though, at no point did anything come into existence. There's never actually a point in that theorem that says that a single iota of matter came into existence. It is assumed that that matter always existed. It was condensed into a very finite space. As a result, we can't exactly argue that the universe began at the Big Bang. We can argue that our local space as we know it, the beginnings of that existence happened there, but that's not the same thing as saying our universe started existing at that point. So, as a result, this whole argument already has some issues. We can't agree on the beginnings of the universe when we simply don't have that information. Dragworker says, axiomatic starting points necessarily don't have justification, so there is an illogical aspect to finite regress. Fair. And then it looked like Drag said something earlier, but I didn't see it. Is it... I don't see where it is. What Drag said. Yeah, okay, fair enough. For some reason, I was thinking Drag is in Drag not Drag is in Drag Worker. Am very, very tired, I guess. Dinobot says, there is the Big Crunch scenario where the infinite Big Bangs and infinite Big Crunches. So while the Big Crunch is a hypothetical that I'm fine engaging in, from what I understand, because of the way the expansion is looking, it looks like from what I understand, and granted this is not my field of study, but from what I understand, it seems like the idea of a big crunch, like a bouncing effect, as it were, is not very likely, where the universe expands and contracts and expands and contracts. That seems to be very unlikely based on the fact that the expansion of the universe seems to be getting faster and faster, not slower and slower. So, but again, don't quote me on any of that. I could be very wrong because we are dealing in a scientific area that I have only studied at the very, very basics of, like, scratching the surface forms. All right. Also, I see that we got a $30 donation in via PayPal. I don't want to say the name of the donation because I feel like that would dox somebody. So if you did send in that donation, please do me a favor and send me a message over Discord with a video suggestion that you would like done for the purposes of this. If you can do that, that would be awesome so that I can give something in return to you. Kitsune Cavalier says, I believe that you are being accurate, and Critical Cripple says, unless the universe stops accelerating, the Big Crunch is impossible. Okay, so that's in line with what I've read on it. Dragworker says earlier, this is the wind problem with infinite regress. Okay. Hey, Suris, do you like Baldi's Basics and Education and Learning? So I like a lot of the songs that have come from Baldi's Basics, but I haven't actually played Baldi's Basics nor engaged with its community in the same way that I've done with, say, the Five Nights community. But I do recognize that the Baldi's Basics community is very in line with, like, the Five Nights community and the Bendy community. I recognize that it's in that similar vein. I just haven't really engaged with it that much. And no, I don't listen to Random Encounters. This is the first time I've heard of him.
So there's really good reason that the universe had a beginning. Now, if the universe had a beginning,
which we still cannot agree on, but let's pretend we do. Also, says Zalrock Chaos just donated $30. Ho, ho, ho. Merry Christmas. Thank you very much for the donation. And Zalrock, can you please send me a message in Discord with a video suggestion, if you have one, for me to tackle. And thank you very much for the $60 donation.
have another dilemma. Either the beginning of the universe was uncaused or caused. We can assume that things don't pop into existence out of nothing. Everything that has a beginning seems to need a cause, right?
Okay. So we've already got a little bit of a linguistic issue here, and I don't want to say that the person who made this video is in bad faith in their conversation. It doesn't sound like they're trying to be super manipulative with their speech, but there was a bit of a whatchamacallit? There was a bit of a bait and switch that happened there. If we are assuming the universe came into existence, or if the universe as we know it came into existence, remember that it began from a finite point of matter. Nothing came into existence. Nothing started existing. But then they go on to say nothing just pops into existence. Let's also ignore the fact that just a second ago, they said that there are things that are either caused or uncaused. Now, they're probably going to lean on all things being caused, but I believe there's a form of logic. Correct me if I'm wrong. Let me look this up real quick. Uncaused causes. All part of the cosmological argument. All right. So Bertrand Russell wrote in his essay, Why I'm Not a Christian, there is no reason why the world could not have come into being without a cause. Warren Rachel, in his response to that, said to simply state that there's no reason why the world would come into existence without being a first cause, without defending the assertion, is an inadequate argument against the notion of a prime mover. Let's see here. All theories of a prime mover are bound to be false. Assuming a prime mover is necessary implies that there's no cause. Let's see. Okay. So there's a point here where it says it is possible for something to not have a cause, but that thing would have to have no potential. It would never change, which is the definition of a deity. Oh, I don't agree with that. I don't agree with that. No, I don't agree with that at all. This is what happens when you get random questions on the internet. Anywho, point is that while it is very intuitive that there is no uncaused cause, that argument is still being had in philosophical circles. Now, granted, to be fair, most people seem to side on the idea that there are no uncaused causes. However, the other side of this, the other side of that conversation, is that even if there are no uncaused causes, we still have not ruled out an infinite regression. And as Real Locke states, a prime mover is not necessarily a deity. Callan also points out quantum mechanics brings out... Oh, wow, none of that is what I'm supposed to be doing. What the hell? Oh, that's why. That's why things are screwing up. Hold up. Let me There we go. Callan also brings up another point. Quantum mechanics brings up issues here. Yes, in quantum mechanics, a lot of particles seem to operate based on their potential. For instance, in the... correct me if I'm wrong. Anybody here who has studied quantum mechanics, please correct me if I am making a mistake in my very gross oversimplification of the split experiment. In the split experiment, we fired several quantum particles at essentially a solid board. But because there was a possible... hypothesis goes, because there's a possible reality in which they made it to the other side, as it turns out, some of the quantum particles actually made it to the other side when they shouldn't have been able to permeate the surface. Am I incorrect in that summation of the split experiment? I could be wrong. My memory is generally pretty bad. A lot of times I rely on you guys to fact check me and get me correct if I am incorrect on things. Little Duder says no clue. I'm imagining Callan would probably be able to help here, or Real-Lock would be able to help here. You don't think that's the split experiment? Experiment. The double slit experiment. Yeah, I believe it is actually the double slit experiment. Oh, it says, no, I'm a political scientist. Fair. So, again, I believe that's the double slit experiment. If I'm wrong, then I'm wrong. Please let me know a correction in there so that I'm not giving out misinformation. Because if I did, then I would rather not do that. Whenever I make an assertion, I try to make sure that it's backed up by something. In this case, it's my own memory, and my memory could be incredibly faulty. It had two slits. When observed, it had a particle reaction. When it wasn't observed, it was distribution of probability. Oh, okay. So that's the issue. With that experiment, the probability was only when it was unobserved. But while it was observed, it had a particle reaction. Okay. Fair enough. Fair enough. Double slit shows wave behavior of light. Remember that observed in this sense means interaction with some form of measuring instrument. Okay, then my understanding of the experiment is incredibly unrefined and has issues. So, thank you guys for correcting me on that. Point being, though, it seems that in a lot of our experiments with quantum particles, there do seem to be some quantum particles that can pop into existence. Depends on whether or not they're being observed. As a result, if someone wants to argue that nothing pops into existence, but we have a physical representation of something that does just pop into existence, it seems strange to me that you would make that argument, because we literally have a refuter to it that exists in the real world. I believe this issue also came up in the debate between Sean Carroll and William Lane Craig, the one that Sean Carroll completely kicked his ass on. But there are people now who seem to be arguing that William Lane Craig won, even though the entire debate was literally just Billy Craig going, physics says this, and Sean Carroll going, well, I'm a physicist, and no, the fuck it doesn't. So, let's continue with the video.
So, if there is a beginning to the universe, it had to have been caused.
Can't agree on that.
Now, if we have a cause to the beginning of the universe, then the question is, what's a candidate for the cause? Well, things are caused in one of two ways. Either events cause other events, like the beginning of the universe, or people cause things.
I don't think that's how that works. I think that's a very gross oversimplification. Also, Drag, I have a suggestion for you. Why not go through many of the videos of debates that have already been up in the beginning, and take those episodes and score and fact check those episodes to actually find people who won particular debates. And yes, the second one is a subset of the first. This is a tautology. No, this is not a tautology. This is literally just reiterating the same thing twice. Either events cause events or people cause things. Well, the things that happen would be events. So this seems to be just the same thing twice. Beelzebub sends 12 bits over on Twitch. Am I the only one that can't use YouTube chat? I like seeing the stream and the chat at once. I don't know why you wouldn't be able to use it. Illusionist Kyoko says anything could be considered an event, to be honest. Yeah. I think that the best thing to do would be to, instead of using this little false dichotomy of saying either people cause things or events cause events, just saying that events cause events. Like, this is just causes cause things. Causes cause causes. It's a rewording of it, but it's the same thing. Some events, like homeschooling dances, cause humans. Oh my god. Okay, I need to check a thing real quick because I'm getting a lot of things randomly. Hasn't sent you money. Has a $10 one, but why can't I actually see the message attached to it? Causes, Suris 2019. Technically, a coin for The Witcher. Locke, I'll find a video to DM you later. Well, thank you very much for the donation, Locke. When you find me a video to do, please do so. Also, there are 3 people who have sent in donations, not counting Locke, who need to send me videos for me to review. Elsewise, we'll just be talking about the Kalam all freaking day. Which we could do if we really wanted to suffer.
So, I can cause my arm to go up. I caused that. But an event can't be the cause of the beginning of the universe, because then that would just be the first event that would need a cause.
No. That is not true at all. Because if you're going to argue, like, even within Christian mythology, this is not a true statement. Because in neither science, nor in Christian mythology, nor in several other theologies, is the universe the only thing in existence. The universe is not all that exists. The universe is simply our local space. Within science, we have this idea called the cosmos. The universe, or the cosmos, encompasses all that is. The universe is a subset of that. Even so, within the realms of science, there are definitions that do not list the universe as everything that is. We have cosmos for that. Within Christian mythology, this is still not accurate. Because within Christian mythology, heaven and hell don't exist physically on Earth. They exist in their own spaces. And not necessarily in the universe, because the universe is a physical space. Heaven and hell are spiritual spaces. The universe isn't all that exists in either science or myth. So no, this does not function. This does not work.
So the only other candidate would be a person, but it couldn't be any person. It would have to be a person who's powerful, timeless, spaceless.
Why? Why does it have to be a timeless being? Why does it have to be a spaceless being? If we accept that the universe can exist in its own space, occupied within a greater space, there's nothing saying that the being that caused the universe, let's assume that there's a being that caused the universe, there's nothing that is saying, we're seeing your Suris, there's nothing that says that that local space cannot be caused by something that is contingent on another thing. Absolutely nothing. It also doesn't have to think. There's nothing saying that it has to be cogent. cognizant or have the ability to process thought at all. A timeless being, so then they say a timeless being wouldn't need a creator. That's not exactly true. Actually, no, we can go ahead and say that that's true. We can. Because if we accept that a timeless thing, being, however you want to say it, doesn't need a creator, cool. As far as science has been able to tell, the universe is, at least in a sense, infinite. The tiny point of matter that always existed up until the point where it didn't. That point where it didn't was t equals 0. If we are willing to accept that that little finite point did in fact exist, then we are willing to accept that it existed infinitely. Again, there's no philosophical problem with an infinite regress. And if that's the case, then why would there actually be an issue with saying that, oh, well, if you're going to say that, oh, well, a being that's timeless doesn't need a creator, okay, cool. So are objects that are timeless. Objects that are timeless that don't need a creator. An infinitely dense object that is timeless doesn't need a creator. That infinitely dense object may have expanded, currently includes all of us, but it's still infinite in its own way. All the pieces of it still exist. None of them have been destroyed. Matter can't be created or destroyed. It is, for every single in every definition of the word, infinite. And we accept that infinite things don't need creators. So wait, why do we somehow need a creator god now? I don't know. Weird justifications. The Kalam is strange. What's funny, though, is even if we grant every point of the Kalam, there's another avenue for this.
Non-physical and really intelligent to bring a universe into existence. And that...
So why does it have to be intelligent to bring the universe into existence? If all matter is... Let's go ahead and say that there's a creator for a second. If all matter is put onto a point as large as the tip of this nail... Now, why do I have nails on my desk? Because I've been doing construction. Sorry. So if it's as large as the tip of this nail, infinitely smaller than that, I only have to be smart enough to make that tiny bit of matter that's ridiculously dense, and then make it expand. I don't have to be terribly smart for that. I don't even have to be intelligent for that. If it's within my power, I don't need to be intelligent at all. So, that's weird. Joanna says, hey, Suris, I've been president of the YouTube atheist space since like 2009-ish when the community went into full reactionary mode. It's really nice to see people like you starting to become more... And that cut off. Callan says, Suris, nailed it. Okay. All right, let's finish off this.
That is the powerful evidence for God's existence. Okay, you may be asking, if everything needs a cause, then who caused God?
That's a bad argument. No. Atheists who engage in counter-apologetics in my chat, if you use this argument, if everything has a cause, then who caused God? If you use this argument, I'm upset with you. I am very upset with you. This is not a good argument. Would you like to know why? If we accept, definitionally, that the universe can be infinite, then it definitionally does not require a creator. If we accept definitionally that a being is infinite, that a being is timeless, then that being did not need to have a creator, because if that being had a creator, it would have a starting point, meaning that it is no longer timeless, going one way. If you are going to engage in counter-apologetics, please do not do the who caused God thing. That is a bad counter-apologetic. It's really, really bad. Please stop. Theists in my chat, if you have heard this, you know it's cringy. It sounds like it's the right point, right? To go, well, if everything needed a cause, who caused God? That's intuitive. That's very intuitive. Intuition is type 1 thinking. Type 1 thinking is not bad. Type 1 thinking can make you survive. Type 1 thinking is your intuition. It's the first thing that comes up. It's your emotional response. It's the thing that happens as soon as your brain synapses go, oh yeah, I need to respond to the thing. Your type 2 thinking, though, is generally where your logic will come in, where your pattern recognition can actually take advantage of what it's seeing. That's when you can start looking at this algorithmically. And when you do, you realize, oh, wait a minute. It's in God's definition that he is infinite. Or it's infinite, if we're talking about the Christian God. So the idea that you need to try to talk about whatever caused it, you're definitionally not talking about that. You two are you're now engaging in a type of equivocation. You're talking about something completely different than what the person you're arguing with has been talking about. And if you're going to be trying to argue with someone about their God, you don't substitute in your version of their God for the argument. You talk about their God. Unless their God is inconsistent in some way, which you can point out, and then present your version if your version seems to be more consistent. Hopefully that is fair. Hopefully everybody in my chat can see that as fair, at least in some way. Because holy shit, I am tired. I did a video on this a year and a half ago. Worst arguments against God. And one of the arguments that I point out as horrible is this specific one. So why not point out such an inconsistency? There are ways to point it out without saying the who caused God thing. If their God definitionally is infinite, then saying who caused God is a nonsense question. You're not arguing about that anymore. Justin Gutierrez says, would you ever consider debating objective versus subjective morality on modern day debate? I think debating objective versus subjective reality is a very reductionist way to talk about reality. There are far more versions of morality than objective or subjective. For instance, I am an anti-realist. I tend to lean towards error theory more than anything. And within that framework, which is considered a subjective framework, you can have objective morality built into it. Morality is not a black and white, cut or dry thing. It is a very complicated thing that philosophers have been arguing with each other about for thousands of years. And Dragworker has it right in the chat. Objective versus subjective is a false dichotomy. It, in and of itself, is a black and white fallacy. There are more variants than just those. What is error theory? Sorry, Leela Duder in the Twitch chat. Error theory. Error theory is an idea proposed within moral anti-realism. Moral anti-realism is the idea that morality itself does not exist in a way that is cogent. And error theory is the idea that all moral propositions are false, because moral propositions rely on unjustifiable axioms, and you can't justify your moral axioms. Therefore, all your moral propositions will be false from the get-go. As a result, error theory. All moral propositions are in error. I imagine that Brian Stevens in the chat could probably help out with that a little bit as well. Like I'm very happy when there are people in the chat that I can look at by name who I know that, oh yeah, no, you probably have things to say on this. Like I know Callan and I know Brian both have conversations about morality a lot, and these are things that both of them know. Ryan says, Suris, you did great. Well, I'm glad that I got that right, because that was off the top of my head. Usually I have reference material to work with. I did not have reference material with me today.
Well, this is a common question. Who caused God? God needs a cause because everything has a cause, right? Wrong. We're not saying everything needs a cause. Whatever begins to exist needs a cause. God didn't begin to exist.
Correct.
If at the beginning of the universe you have time,
God,
space, and matter coming
correct.
into existence,
you
need a cause that literally transcends the universe. It has to be timeless, spaceless, and immaterial or not.
Oh, wait, hold on. Did anybody notice they just shoehorned that one in? Did anybody recognize that? That last part, That last part they said there, it must be immaterial. Why? Why must the cause for the universe be immaterial? That one is just shoved in there. It's shoved in there without any justification whatsoever. The only justification that one would have for saying that the cause of the universe must be immaterial would be by saying, or would be by them arguing against you by saying, well, how would a material thing cause the universe? Except it's not my job to say, it's not my job to find the justification for your argument. If I think that your argument is not justified because a statement like immaterial things must cause material things, that statement doesn't seem to make any sense to me, because we don't have an example of an immaterial thing causing a material thing to go off of.
Non-physical, right? So it has to be what we call an uncaused cause. When we ask, who caused God? Well, God is, by definition, the uncaused cause. He's an unmakeable thing. So it's like asking, who made that unmakeable thing? Nobody.
Who made that unmakeable thing? So here's a question. This is not an argument from the stone, but it is a variant of argument from the stone that I think can lead to some interesting conversations. And maybe this is one. Music Combo says, I'm lost on why who caused God is a stupid question, to be honest. Okay, I'll get to that in just a second. So, I've got only an hour left, so I'm going to have to blitz through the next videos. I've spent an hour on the Kalam. I hate myself. So, what was I? Okay. I completely forgot what my point was. I was on a point, and then it just flew out of my head. It's gone. I don't know where it went. There's my memory issues creeping up. So whilst I try to remember that, or the chat tries to help me remember what tangent I was on, Music Combo. Why is who caused God to be a stupid question? All right. So, if I say, when you ask who caused God, if God is defined as an infinite being without a cause, it is the same as saying, why did Disney make, you know what? Here we go. If I said, this pack of spicy buffalo sauce was made by McDonald's. It really wasn't. They kind of commission it and then get it made with cheapest ingredients. But let's pretend for a second that it was. This package of buffalo sauce that I have on my desk, for some reason, was made by McDonald's. Definitionally, it's made by McDonald's. And then your response is to say, well, why was it made by Disney? Well, definitionally, it wasn't made by Disney. You may be talking about something else that's made by Disney. There might be another buffalo sauce that is made or that they commissioned that is inside their parks. But definitionally, this item that you and I are talking about is not caused by Disney. At least not in a direct way. They are kind of... The mouse is technically our capitalist overlord. Let's be honest. But because we are talking about something definitionally that doesn't have a cause, when you try to argue that, well, who caused the thing that didn't have a cause, you are talking about something different. The God that is in your mind that you are arguing against is a God that had a cause. The God in their mind that they are arguing for is a God that didn't have a cause. You're bringing up a point against a God they're not arguing for. William McAllister says they strawman science by ignoring conservation of matter, though. Oh, no, I agree. I agree. It's a straw man of science when you say that matter had to exist when conservation of matter says that it didn't. But my point is simply that, as an example, if I was trying to convince Callan in the chat, who is a polytheist, that one of her gods didn't exist, and I used arguments against the Christian God or the Muslim God, Callan would then look at me and go, Suris, you're being an idiot. I'm not talking about those gods. None of those gods that you brought up are the gods that I'm talking about. Can we please talk about my gods? It's the same thing. When you argue about points that are definitionally not part of the god that they're bringing up, you are talking about a separate god than they are talking about. It's not quite a straw man, but it is somewhat close to a straw man. Well, I've got a lot of pagans in my chat. It could be used on many. This example could be used on many of them, but Callan's in the chat, so. Greg says that comes back to special pleading. Everything out of cause except God. Why does God require cause? So again, we're dealing in a bit of semantics here, but the semantics are important. So when somebody says that all that came into being, all that begins to exist has a cause, well, that already excludes things that didn't begin to exist. It's not special pleading. It's special pleading if you said God begins to exist and he also does not have a cause. Then you would be special pleading. But you're not special pleading if definitionally the thing you're talking about doesn't fit into the category. Special pleading only happens when you make an exception for something that fits within the same category of all other things you're arguing for. Infinite things do not fit into that category. Infinite things do not begin to exist. So to say that they begin to exist, to try to argue that it's special pleading, you have to commit a category error. You have to take the infinite thing and shove it into the wrong category to argue that it's special pleading, which means that you are now committing category error as a fallacy. So, now isn't this an unfalsifiable hypothesis? Yes, it is. An infinite God is unfalsifiable, just as an infinite universe is unfalsifiable, because we have no way of going back and doing that. Even the measurements we do can get us to t equals 0, but that just gets us to the beginning of time. Space and matter are a completely different story. So, yes, it is unfalsifiable, and that is a problem. And you can point out the unfalsifiability as a problem. But unfalsifiability is only truly an issue for things that we are trying to argue against with science. Science cares about falsifiability of hypothesis. If we are arguing for a God that is supernatural, then that's outside the category of science as well. Science deals with things in the natural world. A God is not necessarily within our natural world. There are defeaters for a deity. You can do that. You can argue against it. But there are ways to do it which cause you to commit category errors. And if you're dealing with a theist who's like very, very white belt when it comes to this type of argumentation, then they might not catch it, and they might go, oh, yeah, no, you have a point. But if you're dealing with somebody who's well-versed in this, if you're dealing with somebody who's had lots of debates, who's studied and gone to school for this, they're likely going to catch these little issues. Crick says, true, but as I said in my post up in the chat, then you go into energy can't be created or destroyed, therefore did not begin to exist, and has no need of a cause like God. Well, exactly. That's a point that I brought up earlier as well. If we accept that conservation of matter is a thing, which I hope we all do, then matter did not begin to exist at any point, making matter effectively infinite. If matter is effectively infinite, matter doesn't need to be created. And if matter doesn't need to be created, then you don't need a God in that equation. Tony Designs would say, I'd quibble that unfalsifiability is a tenet of philosophy. Science is a subset of philosophy, but extends beyond it. So our quibble on here would be that philosophy is utilized to create methodologies, and methodologies as a study is how we created the scientific method. So you are correct. However, I would say that when we're just dealing with philosophical musings, you don't have to take into account all matters of philosophy when talking about a simple philosophical thing. For instance, if I'm talking about something within the framework of moral error theory, I don't necessarily have to deal with divine command theory for the purposes of that conversation. Zach FR, early Christmas present for you with the $2. Thank you very much for that, Zach. Okay. So, give me 1 second. All right. Let's finish up this video and then get to the next
Point
video.
is, we have an uncaused cause, God, who brought everything else into existence. He literally transcends the universe.
Okay, so it's just this.
Still confused? Still doubtful? We totally understand. Be sure to check back to get your questions answered.
But wait, if this was the one argument for God that we needed to care about, then nah. Okay, so Music Combo says, so sirs, basically your revised argument against the cosmological argument is that the universe has traits like God and therefore doesn't need God to have created it. Do I have that right? That would be one refutation I have for the cosmological argument. Another one that I have is that if someone attempts to use the cosmological argument to argue for their God, the cosmological argument gets you to a first cause, period. Assuming something very important that I will get into in a minute. The cosmological argument gets us to a first cause. But that first cause isn't necessarily the Christian God. In fact, the cosmological argument was originally used for the Muslim version of Yahweh, or Allah. Yes, I know that Allah is just God in Arabic, and yeah, I know. I understand the history behind that, but Muslims will argue that they are worshiping a different God. Christians will argue they're not worshiping their God. Anywho, the Kalam cosmological argument gets you to a first cause, but it does not get you to what that first cause is. It can functionally get us to deism, if we agree with all of it. So if we agree with the Kalam, we can get to deism at least if we really wanted to accept a deity. But that doesn't get us to Christianity. That doesn't get us anywhere past that. Like, to quote Christopher Hitchens, congratulations, you've made me a deist. Now you've got the rest of the work to do.
You may wish to be a deist, as my heroes Thomas Jefferson and Thomas Paine were, and you may not wish to abandon the idea that there must be some sort of first or proximate cause or prime mover of the known and observable world and universe. But even if you can get yourself to that position, which we unbelievers maintain is always subject to better and more perfect and more elegant explanations, even if you can get yourself to that position, all your work is still ahead of you.